Yo, welcome to another video. Of course, we're watching Chilling Scares because I just feel like watching creepy stuff in the middle of the night. Well, not middle of the night, but pretty dark outside. Timing with nobody home, no lights on except for my room. I don't know. 6 most disturbing mysteries solved with Google Maps. Let's see.
30th, 2010, three men were drinking together in a backyard in Richland County, South Carolina. The names of the men were Leslie Todd Parvin, Edgar Lopez, and Pablo Gutierrez Guzman. At some point in the afternoon, an argument broke out between the three men, and Leslie ended up pulling a handgun from his waistband and taking the lives of the two other men. It's unclear exactly what sparked the argument between the three men, but immediately after the shooting, Parvin fled to Louisiana in his green Kia minivan. Once there, he shaved his head and destroyed both the gun he had used to take the lives of his two victims as well as the minivan. For a few days, Parvin managed to elude the authorities, but pretty soon the cops started scanning through license plate records of all green Kia vans registered in Louisiana. According to investigation documents, after the double murder, a witness had reported a partial tag of Parvin's minivan to the police. And a couple days later, on a whim, the cops plugged the suspect's address into Google Maps Street View, and sure enough found a green minivan parked in front of his house with the license plates and description matching what the witness had told them. With that kind of evidence stacked against him, it was pretty much all over for Parvin. And on August 19th, a relative brought him back to his home in the Windsor Lake area, where he was promptly arrested on 2 charges of murder and later sentenced to 35 years in prison. During the investigation, it was publicly revealed that Parvin was a 20-year Army veteran with 5 overseas deployments and a pretty bad case of PTSD, which he had been diagnosed with in 2007. According to his father's testimony, his 20 years of military service and the stress from his tours near Iraq and Afghanistan could have influenced his behavior on the day of the incident. You would think that after 2 decades of selflessly serving his country, Parvin would have been provided the appropriate mental health treatment to help him live his life peacefully. Instead, 2 innocent men are now dead, and the perpetrator himself will be spending most of the rest of his life behind bars. 35 years after his crime, at the age of 75, Parvin will be released from prison into a world he'll probably no longer even recognize.
It's crazy.
In July 2018, Channel 4 released an incredibly disturbing video which showed a group of uniformed men leading multiple women and children through a dirt road and onto a deserted patch of land where the armed men then shamelessly took the lives of the victims at gunpoint. In the video, the men can be heard accusing the women and children of belonging to the notorious terrorist group Boko Haram. The video caught the attention of the entire world, with hundreds of people immediately alleging that the terrifying footage had been captured in Cameroon. However, the government of Cameroon immediately denied the claims, alleging that the video wasn't even shot in their country and that their army was being wrongly blamed for killing civilians. Still, the BBC wasn't convinced, and their team of researchers decided to find out who had been responsible for the atrocities in the video, where they took place, and when. After receiving an anonymous tip, they used Google Maps to study the layout of a particular region in Cameroon and discovered that the mountain range visible in the background of the video was near a village named Krawa Mafa, very close to the Nigerian border. By analyzing several years of Google satellite imagery of the region, the researchers from the BBC were able to determine that the incident had taken place at some point between March 20th and April 5th, 2015. Upon further investigation, it was revealed that the Cameroonian government hadn't been honest when they denied the claims. For example, the government had claimed that the Cameroonian army didn't use weapons like the ones shown in the video, but the BBC's analysis revealed that the guns were Serbian-made Zastava M21s, which are in fact used in the Cameroonian army. On top of this, several other details that the government had claimed were inaccurate turned out to be a perfect match, including the armed men's uniforms. A month after the Cameroonian government's initial denial of the claims, they then updated their statement to clarify that 7 members of the army were now under investigation. And when the BBC shared their full report with the Cameroonian government, the country's Minister of Communication was reported saying, 7 soldiers were arrested, disarmed. They are under investigation right now. I can confirm that all 7 of them are in prison. In their next statement, the Cameroonian government released the names of the 7 detainees, and the BBC confirmed that some of them were the same people who were seen in the video executing the innocent women and children. In 2020, 4 of the soldiers in the video received 10-year prison sentences for the murders, while a 5th soldier was sentenced to 2 years for filming and sharing the footage. The other 2 soldiers were acquitted.
Only 10
It's
years?
crazy to think that you can get away with such an atrocious crime and only face 10 years in
Yeah, that's
prison.
crazy. Only 10
But
years.
at least they're being held accountable for what they did, all thanks to a very detailed examination of the video's content against Google's satellite imagery.
Does what's it called? Do they have good behavior?
I have 12 emails, 30 messages, and a proposal due by 10. Tell them I'm already underwater.
I am in the
Between 2010 and 2011, 11 bodies were found near Gilgo Beach on the south shore of Long Island between Nassau and Suffolk counties. Most of the bodies belonged to female escorts whose lives had been taken as early as 1993. But it wasn't until 2023 that they finally managed to arrest Rex Heuermann, a 60-year-old architect and father of two, and connect him to the crimes through DNA evidence, cell phone records, and the links between his Chevy Avalanche and the crimes. After his arrest, Rex was charged with the deaths of 4 women, and later he was charged with the deaths of 2 other women after DNA evidence linked him to the crimes. Disturbingly, the cops found that the suspect had used several burner phones to conduct thousands of searches related to the things he later ended up doing to his victims. And to seal Heuermann's fate, they also found a huge Word document on his hard drive in his basement, in which Rex had planned out the murders of his victims in very explicit detail. Shockingly, the document included checklists that outlined the steps he needed to complete before, during, and after his killings. Based on court evidence, Heuermann started committing these during and after.
Things to remember is sound travels. Bird outside, control the amount of air in and out to control the noise. Get sleep before hunt. Too tired creates problems. Hit hard, too many hit to take down, consider hit to
After
the
his
face
killing.
or neck. Next time for takedown. More sleep equals noise control. Equals more playtime.
Based on court evidence, Heuermann started committing these crimes as early as 1993, and if found guilty, he'll be facing multiple consecutive life sentences in prison. As of 2024, the case is still ongoing, but during the investigation, some more disturbing details have surfaced. In 2023, some online users discovered a Google Street View image of Heuermann talking to an unidentified woman near his office on East 36th Street more than a year before his arrest. Now, we have no idea who this woman is, and it's very possible that she was a potential victim, but we also can't say that for sure. Chillingly, in the image, Rex also appears to be wearing the same shirt that he wore for a YouTube interview earlier in 2022, where he spoke about his role as an architect at his firm on Fifth Avenue. His defense lawyer, Michael Brown, told the New York Post that the cops have the wrong man.
Do they? Do they now?
In September 2008, a 14-year-old Dutch boy was riding his bike in the town of Groningen, about 110 miles northeast of Amsterdam, when suddenly 2 young men walked behind him, dragged him off his bike, and robbed him of €165 and his phone. For several months, the cops failed to find the suspects, as no witnesses came forward and they only had the boy's description of the muggers to go on. In March of the following year, the victim went on his computer and started surfing Google Maps Street View, looking at the location where he'd been mugged around 6 months earlier. To his surprise, the Street View car had captured the 2 men walking up behind him in the moments before the crime. As is usually the case with these images, the faces of the 2 muggers and the victim were blurred, but the boy immediately called the cops and informed them of the new development in the case. With the Street View pictures in hand, the authorities asked Google to hand over the unblurred version of the images to help identify the suspects. Interestingly, as soon as they got the unblurred images, the investigators recognized one of the muggers from a previous crime, and the other suspect was identified as the first mugger's twin brother. After confirming their identity, the Dutch police were able to track down and arrest the twins, but I wasn't able to find official confirmation that they were charged and sentenced. It's unclear if the boy ever got his phone and money back.
Probably not the money, but the phone, sure. Unless he
30-year-old Kim Wall was an award-winning Swedish journalist who traveled all over the world to cover stories on social justice. Throughout her career, her reporting took her to countries like Uganda, Cuba, the Marshall Islands, and Kenya, with her work often being featured in prestigious journals like the New York Times, the South China Morning Post, and the Atlantic. In 2017, while she was in Copenhagen with her boyfriend, she met Peter Madsen, a brilliant Danish inventor and self-taught engineer who had built his own submarine, designed his own rockets, and had plans to launch himself into space in the near future. On August 10th of that year, Peter Madsen took Kim Wall on a trip off the Copenhagen coast in his homemade submarine, the NC-3 Nautilus, for a brief interview. Sadly, after that trip, Kim Wall was never seen again. When she didn't come back later that day, her partner reported her missing and an official investigation was officially launched. Just a few days later, on the 21st of August, a passing cyclist found parts of her body washed up on the beach close to where she had gone missing. And about a month and a half later, the rest of her body was found in multiple different weighted down bags by police divers. During the investigation, Madsen was brought in for questioning, but he denied having anything to do with the state of her body. He instead claimed that Kim Wall had died after being accidentally hit on the head by the hatch of the submarine. Strangely, he later ended up changing his account of the events and claimed that Wall had died after inhaling toxic fumes. Although no trace of toxic fumes was found in her system, the authorities did find 15 stab wounds on Kim's body.
Damn.
After being held in police custody for a while, Madsen eventually confessed that he had murdered Wall and then thrown her separate body parts into the Baltic Sea. In April 2018, Peter Madsen was convicted on 3 separate charges and was sentenced to life in prison, where he's been spending his days for the past 6 years. In 2021, Madsen ended up receiving an additional 21 months in prison for staging a bomb threat in an extremely elaborate escape attempt.
Ow.
Fortunately, he was recaptured soon after and was brought back to his cell.
Ow.
One of the things that's interesting about this case is that Peter Madsen had been captured by the Google Maps Street View camera climbing into his submarine. Chillingly, when he confessed to the murder, he mentioned that his intention was never to take Kim Wall's life, but rather to sink the Nautilus forever, even if it meant that both he and the innocent journalist would die inside. To this day, it's still unclear how exactly he took Kim's life, but thankfully Madsen will be spending the rest of his life behind bars with no possibility of ever coming back to society
just
again.
Go in the water and die there. The fuck?
Porto Rotondo is a district in Sardinia known for its imposing mansions, sandy beaches, and elegant shops and restaurants. In 2002, an Italian businessman sold his villa in Porto Rotondo for €280,000. Due to the comparatively low value of the transaction, the sale immediately raised a red flag for the authorities, and the finance police in Italy ended up using Google Earth as part of their investigation into the property. One important detail about the villa in question is that it allegedly had a swimming pool with a very particular shape, which the cops used to guide their search for the villa using satellite imagery. As soon as they found the property, they confirmed that they had a major case of tax evasion on their hands, as the actual value of the villa should have been much, much higher considering that the value of all the properties nearby was in the high 7 figures. With enough evidence from Google's satellite imagery to confirm that the unidentified businessman had indeed committed tax fraud, the finance police then checked the suspect's bank accounts and discovered €7 million in unreported deposits spanning several years. This was a case that I just couldn't find a lot of information on, as the original article in Italian had very few details, and it wasn't even officially confirmed what the legal consequences were for the businessman. Still, it's probably safe to assume that his assets were seized, and due to the crazy amount of unreported cash, it's likely that he spent at least a few years in jail.
Damn, pay your taxes so then they don't take all your stuff. Of course, it might be a crazy amount, but hey. 15 stab wounds, unclear how she died. Well, I guess one of the 15 stab wounds got to her. Yeah. On the murder suggests a stab wound served to vent accumulated gases in the body to prevent them from floating to the surface. Whether or not the stabbing is what actually killed her isn't known. So he probably stabbed her so then her body would stay underwater. But wouldn't, like, this is how I'm thinking about it. Like, you can think about it 2 ways, right? Depending on the body part would be depending on if the body floats, right? And they said they found pieces of her. So let's say he cut off her arm, right? And then he stabbed it. Wouldn't the arm float up? Because if you stab me in the arm, it will probably go through all the way. Unless you're accurate enough to not stab me all the way through and it just like leaves. You get what I'm trying to say though? But yeah, like, subscribe, see you guys later. Hope you have a good day or night, and bye.